So I'm very concerned about the safety of our children and pets in that area.
If you look at the entire size of that, to open that to hunting does not really make a whole lot of sense. And who have concern for our safety of ourselves, children, pets, and these are public roads. So it could conceivably be a rifle shot doesn't stop at 300 yards.
And I can say from my experience as out on the Ice Age trails about every weekend doing volunteer work, the key times of the year for people to be out hiking are the spring and the fall.
Trail brings in people from out of state, as well as hikers in state, and I just think it's important that at least people have the perception that they can safely hike on the Ice Age Trail throughout the fall. A lot of people do hike, or cross-country ski and snowshoe in the winter. I think that's very important. Thank you.
As an outdoor user, I spend as much of my time as possible off trails. My wife and I enjoy botanizing and birding and tracking animals. The trails get us to our jumping off point, but we spend as much of our time as possible out in the middle of the non-designated use areas.
I think there's a huge need to delineate between trapping and hunting. A lot of people in Wisconsin are pro-hunting, but they see trapping as animal cruelty. There's also different ramifications for the two things. With hunting, you have bullets. With trapping, you have something that's left on the ground that could potentially harm children, well, could harm anybody or pets. I also think, thank you, that you need to be concerned about the civil lawsuits, because an injury or a murder of a person or a child will occur. It's a question of when, not if. I myself was shot at riding a horse in the city limits during deer hunting season in northern Wisconsin and survived it. My father was a veterinarian in northern Wisconsin for 37 years. During hunting season, it was very common to have between 15 and 20 animals rushed in for emergencies due to trapping primarily. Me, as a person who has repeatedly bought annual passes to the Wisconsin state parks, I'm seriously considering not doing that. I do not want to put my own life at risk while I'm riding my bike or skiing or stepping on something when I get out of the water from swimming.
You're essentially charged with taking what is a very inherently dangerous situation and trying to make it safe. And I think it's really a legal fiction what you're trying to accomplish here. I think they're mutually incompatible uses, especially at a park like Devil's Lake. I think the preceding speaker was correct. It's really a question of when someone's going to get killed, not really if.
This area, there is a home. There is a home. This is commercial. This is a jelly factory, Slacks, Gems, and Jellies. Right here, my neighbor lives. His swimming pool is 50 feet from the edge of this area. This is a commercial subdivision. This is all the commercial single-family homes. I have a petition that's been filed with the DNR board of 60 of the family members, all people that live in the area, asking that this not be open for hunting for public safety. I've hunted in Alaska 11 trips. I've hunted in South America. I have a great trophy room. There's a time and a place for everything. I have two beautiful black Labradors. Right here is my mailbox. This is my private road to my house. Right here we can set a trap 60 feet from my mailbox. My neighbor cannot let his dog out the front door because there can be traps set within 40 yards of his back door. This is insane.
Hiker, biker, snowshoer, skier. I think we're dealing with a bad law. I don't envy the people up here. Thank you for listening to us. Opposed to opening areas that are currently used by many other Wisconsin state residents to hunting. I think if we do open a lot of these places that we've talked about and we're going to talk about, you're going to drive other park users out of the park. So instead of having hikers or cross-country skiers on the Pleasure Valley Trail, and instead of having snowshoers on the Overload Trail, you might have hunters or trappers. So I don't view that as a win-win. I view that as a loss and maybe a gain for a hunter or two.
We don't want somebody killed there. There's a lot of children that use this property, in particular this trail, unattended because it's like their backyard. I really don't think that they're going to know the difference, whether you put a buffer zone or not, that they can walk here and not here.
Hi, my name is Virgil Schrader. I'm a trapper and president of the Wisconsin Trappers Association. And I am here to support the requirements of Act 168 allowing more hunting and trapping in state parks. That trapping might have been a barbaric thing to do in 1863, but for those that are saying it, today in 2012 it is not barbaric anymore. We've come a long way. And if you think it's barbaric, I think you ought to check in a little more to what trapping has become in 2012, and you'll find out it's not as bad as you think. Thank you.
And I am a full-time trapper. I've trapped for over 40 years and hunted with hounds. Trapping has changed so much. There are so many different traps that are species specific. These are our parks too, not just the ones that you guys live in, but we own these too. We should be able to have that right to hunt and trap in there.
There is a difference between hikers and hunters. Hikers do not carry lethal weapons. And again, this is
I have never killed anybody from hiking in the park. I have never killed anybody from skiing in the parks. I have never killed anybody from horseback riding in the parks. But there are hunters who have killed people from hunting in parks.
There are countless public safety concerns and accountability questions that still need to be addressed regarding this act. Buffer zones and signage just aren't enough. I actually look forward to the day when Act 168 is removed from the law books. But until then, I would like to ask all of the decision makers and members of the Wisconsin DNR here tonight to continue to review the entire law and always look for ways to promote public safety and protect innocent life. Thank you.
I love Wisconsin State Parks. I love to walk there with my husband and my dog who's on leash. I don't want to get killed on my hike. I'm 72 years old. I don't hunt. I'm perfectly willing not to hike during deer season. But to make the state parks off limits for a safe walk from mid-October to Memorial Day seems too long and unfair to the public at large.
I'm a patron of our state parks, a big supporter of hunters' rights, and the mother of an outdoor-loving 3-year-old. When I heard about Act 168, I was instantly concerned. Not only do we live right next to the Ice Age Trail, but we frequently use the state parks in an off-trail capacity. I know that hunters take great care to be safe, and that hunter safety courses have greatly improved safety standards. However, despite this, we still have had 26 hunting-related injuries, which included 2 fatalities in 2011. 2 of these injuries occurred where there was more than 100 yards between the hunter and the victim. Because of this, I do not think that the 100-yard buffer around high-use areas is adequate. Additionally, we and many of our friends participate in off-trail activities like geocaching, rock climbing, park cleanups, invasive species removals, and even just good old-fashioned exploring. This use of the parks is very popular, and having the public using the park off-trail in thick growth where hunters are not expecting them or can't see them, or we don't expect a trap to be set, is just asking for trouble. Looking at the numbers of state park visitors, there were approximately 14 million visitors last year to Wisconsin state parks. The total number of hunting, not fishing licensing and tags issued in 2011 was 854,107. Even assuming an increase to 1 million licenses and tags due to the expanded hunting areas, this is only 7% of the total park visitors, yet the proposed open hunting times give hunters 61% of the year in the parks. Additionally, hunters already have access to managed forest land for hunting, which the rest of the state park users do not have access to for hiking, geocaching, and other activities. So I do not believe it is unreasonable to set aside non-hunting times all year round for non-hunters to use the park without having to worry about interfering with hunters or becoming one of those hunting injury statistics.
I think it's great that trappers are telling you they're trying to improve their traps. I think they are, but it's also extremely cruel, and very cruel traps still exist on the land. And taxpayers pay for this property. It's not hunters and trappers, but they've sold this to you. They've greenwashed it.
This was not a transparent law. This was not, I didn't even know about it, and I would be as interested as anybody. I served on the trapping committee of the Conservation Congress, which is supposed to represent all of us, in which they intimidate the rest of us from coming every spring. For 80 years, this has been controlled by one cartel that is killing our wildlife. And I can tell you, most people don't want to look at trapping. And I've had my fill of it because I served on the trapping committee. It is horrendous. It should be banned.
I am not against hunting. I support those of you who want to hunt, but I do not feel that it should be done to my detriment or the detriment of my safety using state lands. I think when we talk about fair use of the state parkland and the fact that it's a shared space between everyone, closed for or open for hunting means closed for me. If there's hunting in that state park, I can honestly say that it is not worth the risk for me to even spend any of my time there. Last Thanksgiving, I had my parents out from Seattle, and we decided to go hiking in Devil's Lake. It was Thanksgiving weekend, very populated area from my experience, and I will tell you that my heart dropped to my feet when I heard a gunshot. And my family, we didn't see signs, oh, this park is, designated hunting. I had just moved here, I had no idea. And that was an absolutely terrifying moment for me and for my folks, and we thought, well, what's the quickest way out of here? And so that to me is disappointing. I think the young lady who spoke earlier, who started talking about statistics, who said specifically, 7% of park users are hunters, everyone else are other recreation users. I think if you want to look at fairness, you're really looking at allowing, 2/3 of the park for 7% of the population and almost 2/3 of the year. And so I would challenge you to look at the available space for hunting as well as the time frames and extending that. I know very, very many people have spoken about extending the time frame both in the spring and in the fall to accommodate round-year recreational users. But I would actually like to go a step further. What I would actually request is that the state designate or the DNR designate certain parks that are closed to hunting year-round. And the reason for that is, I think, in particular, the folks who came up and spoke about Gibraltar Rock and also Governor Nelson Park really did a good job of pointing out that there is really no way to maintain the safety of the designated hiking areas without expanding those to the borders of the park. I'm an avid rock climber as well, and so Devil's Lake is a primary concern to me. I do often hike off trail in order to get to those rock climbing areas. None of those, or very few of those rock climbing areas that were pointed out are actually part of the designated use areas that have been highlighted. That poses a threat for both me and my dog and my colleagues who do use those rock climbing areas. So thank you again for your consideration. I know I'm out of time, and I very much appreciate your time.